boy. Everybody's moving into the woods. Who knows? Maybe it's just a joke. Anyway, good morning, my loves. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope you're all having a great morning. Yes, we are getting questions about the Evergreen State College. We're getting questions about MK Ultra. Hello. Johnny 666 and Marxism. All kinds of interesting and strange bedfellows. And I thought today maybe we could just do a quick little review, because I've only done it once. Said it once. I don't like to be super repetitive, but it is the story of Doc and the MK Ultra. Well, I guess I'll just start. Doc is a wonderful friend. He's from a rogue Amish background. I don't know if you've heard of, it's so funny. When I was a kid, I remember, and I'm ancient, so I don't know if any of you other people have heard this one, but there used to be these game shows where they'd say, you've won in a mana radar range. And I'd be like, wait a minute, isn't Amana like the Amish country? How can they have a radar range if they're Amish? So now oops, I never did film that one, and now they're kind of filling everything, aren't they, with these giant rubble things. We're heading downtown, everybody. We're heading downtown. So Doc was oddly, as most Amish are not in the Vietnam War, and most fill out, conscientious objector forms and all of that sort of thing. So he didn't. He just decided to go. I think he was actually not. I think Doc fell in love with a woman whose dad was in the military, and he thought, okay, I've got to join this. I've got to just not even be drafted, so that he could even have a chance at this woman who became his wife. So he ended up over in Vietnam, our little rogue Amish guy, and he at one point was in a plane, and he was just a passenger. He wasn't flying it. He was in a plane, and it caught fire. And they had to go down, and they went down and had some kind of bizarro landing on some kind of hot, weird Southeast Asian island. And they were immediately surrounded by the enemy. They were taken to some village, and they were tortured for the next 3 months. It was just awful. And then later, Doc found out that he was not in a Southeast Asian jungle island prison at all, but that he was on some kind of American island somewhere, I don't know, off the coast of Louisiana, something like that, and that the entire operation had been nothing but a psyop. I love this. We've got the Salvation Army across the street from the liquor store. It's just kind of too perfect there. So here he is in this ridiculous psyop that's just completely, he's mad. You know, there's like no reason. Why did they do that to him? Why he's just this guy who just tried to like join the army or something. And this was bought out by the supposed wild hippies of this town, and they had all kinds of contests, and then this woman took over as to how they were going to paint it. And I thought they were going to have wild murals that, you know, it's the supposed creative bunch. And did you see what color they painted it? Gray, white. Yeah, power corrupts in this town. And that was some woman that had all the power, you know, to like decide on what that was going to be. And it was an Evergreen graduate. And I was thinking, okay, go for it. Be your greener self and make a great wild mural. They kind of snuck in and took over that Eagles Club, much to the chagrin of the beer drinking, I was going to say Fred Flintstone, but what's that other one, Over the Moon? I'm going to give you the moon, Alice. You know, that kind of group. I remember going in when it was taken over and watching these meetings and thinking, okay, they're probably going to do something amazing. And yep, there you go. There's your gray white. There's your Evergreen graduate at work. So Doc then left the military, and he was from California, where this rogue Amish sect was from, that were kind of more scientific, more into the engineering. They were kind of aligned with Lawrence Livermore. Again, that fencing, all new. I guess it's not so new now, but it's just weird. And so here he comes to the Evergreen State College. He's escaping all that nonsense, all that military stuff, and he's now going to have a life, and he has signed up with a brand new college that's in the woods, and it's just perfect for the entire back to the land kind of post San Francisco movement. All right, so he goes to Evergreen, and who's one of the first people he sees in the hall? Who is one of the first people he sees? Richard Jones, the MK Ultra, you know what? Doc has more choice words for him. Who was the mastermind of that ridiculous PSYOP operation where all these people were chained to a wall and whipped by basically a Hollywood actor for 3 or 6 months or whatever amount of time it was. Now there are, I would like to let you know, 2 Richard Jones at Evergreen. I've met the son of the other one, Andres Jones, and I thought that his dad was the Richard Jones, but there's another one there. And I only know that because I took a class from the MK Ultra one back in like 1981, and he really freaked me out. And I ended up getting a transfer. The one who was Andres Jones' father, I looked him up, and he was tall, bald, and no, the other one, the MK Ultra guy, was kind of shorter of stature and had a thick patch of hair. So anyway, that's wild. And it kind of ties in with Micklejohn saying we wanted to go all the way, and you know, we thought we were going to get the green light in Santa Cruz, and we didn't. So what is this wanting to go all the way stuff, right? Now, in kind of just going through Google, the first thing that came up was that MK Ultra was kind of a Cold War thing to fight Marxism. So it's funny, Johnny666, you're asking about Marxism and MK Ultra, and it was sort of saying, but I don't know. I looked at that and thought, wait a minute, these articles come from all over. And another thing that we all know is that the Dulles brothers were really entrenched in it, coming from the Sullivan and Cromwell side here, and that Dr. Cameron was a really great friend, and that one of the Dulleses would joke about wanting to send his wife to the place in Canada, which had nothing to do with getting Marxists. It was just going after housewives who had depression. So, unless were they experimenting on them so that they could get the communists. I'm not completely sold on the Cold War thing, because the Dulles brothers were the ones who financed the communists going in to Russia. That was all, Eleanor was, sending Lenin off, in his little train car to Russia from Switzerland. He wasn't one of those kind of fighters in the revolution and all of that. And, we don't hear enough about Eleanor. So, there's all these kind of just weird sort of layers upon layers upon layers. And ultimately it just feels like it's just all about control. But before going into those aspects, I think we want to get to the roots of things. And there are different people you can read. There's a guy who's kind of an interesting character named Peter Levenda, who has written kind of about what they call the rat lines from the Vatican to the U.S., bringing in the Nazi scientists, and when they brought in Nazis to come over to the U.S. after the war, kind of use their brain for the U.S. or whatever. But I think he kind of misses out on talking about and Doc would definitely say this, the Southeast Asian, and actually the term brainwashing did come from a Miami reporter who wrote about what was going on in Southeast Asia. You've probably all seen The Old Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra. If you haven't, do, because that movie is about the Southeast Asians being way advanced in methods of what this person ended up calling brainwashing. And they really, and I think, I think that maybe the Nazis were maybe trying to learn from them. They were experimenting on people, but this was, as Doc said, it was really deep Fu Manchu stuff that these people had been practicing way before, communism or any of these isms. This was kind of a deep thing that had been going on for a long time in that culture, and people like the Nazis were trying to play catch up. They were newbies on the block. These people have been doing this forever. So, MK Ultra, I think, is just maybe like, a method of control, seeing how can you control people. Is there free will, or can you completely control people and turn them into assassins and sex slaves and all these kinds of wild, crazy things. They kind of maybe had a little too much power back then. There's kind of a famous case when things were brand new. the government would pretend to have private businesses and things, and there was one where they just hired people for retail jobs at some kind of mall. It was outside of DC, and they were, hypnotizing people and seeing, well, these people remember what they did when they, came to apply for this job, and they had them do all kinds of crazy stuff, sort of like, what we see with hypnosis. It really was a time when, and I was going to say US, although, as we all know, the first, known kind of experiments were done up in Canada to avoid detection in the US, although we do know there was the place in Lexington, Kentucky with Dr. Isbell, Isbel, and that was kind of a weird thing where I was reading like a couple books at the same time. There was one, and I don't know the name of it, and it was incredible. It was written by a British journalist. It was written, I think, early 90s about MK Ultra in the US. And a friend of mine was reading William Burroughs at the same time, and I was peeking into his book now and then, and it was so odd because the two bled over. William Burroughs in this book I was reading was complaining about this doctor he had named Dr. Isbell in Kentucky, who he had gone to for help with his heroin addiction. And I so wanted to know what the dates were in these things, because William Burroughs did, he killed his wife. And I've always wondered, was that part of the MK Ultra thing, or had that happened, years before or years later? Was that part of the deal or not part of the deal? So here we've got, and what I was thinking this morning is, wow, that Meiklejohn guy, saying, we didn't get enough at Berkeley, and we had them, put up UC Santa Cruz, and they wouldn't give us enough. And then when they came to the hinterlands up here, nobody ever thought of Washington back then at all. Then they were able to do what it was they wanted to do. What the heck was that, right? What the heck was it that they wanted to do so much? And now my question going home is, did Meiklejohn know Jolly West? Were they buddies? Oh my gosh. Each tree is so beautiful here in the fall, everywhere in the fall on this earth. And it's just hard to drive by them without even just wanting to weep at just the beauty. They're beautiful in the gray rain. They're beautiful in the emo fog. They're beautiful in the sun, which we don't get much of. Many blessings.